I'm Dawn Bessarab. I'm based in Perth. I'm a Bard Injibandi woman. My people come from Ardiulan or One Arm Point, Jallinyan in the Dampier Peninsula. And yeah, I'm here at the conference participating and listening to all the wonderful speakers so far talk about different aspects of Aboriginal health, and I think particularly around language and the issue of why language is so important in culture.
And tell me what it means to you and from your personal experience too.
Well, I think language is the crux of everything, because language helps to construct the way that you think and the way that you see the world. And the fact that if you start to use Aboriginal words and you think in Aboriginal concepts, it's a completely different worldview to the way in which English constructs the world. And so for us Aboriginal people, the fact that many of us have been raised on speaking English, not because it was a choice, but because it was part of the earlier colonial policies, which dictated that we couldn't, to be accepted and to live in Western society, we had to forego our cultural languages and our cultural knowledges. Then we grew up with English as our first language. And a lot of our brothers and sisters who are still living in traditional lands where English is not their first language, the strength of identity and the cultural concepts that we learn from them around worldviews has a whole different way of interaction.
You said about your father.
Oh yes, well, you made the point losing language. I don't think I lost language. I was never given the opportunity to speak language. And the reason for that, of course, is because of the colonial history. But when I've spoken to the old people, my dad has passed on now, but some of the old people have told me that my father spoke High Bard, and that when he spoke Bard, it was like listening to music, because he was such a beautiful speaker of Bard. And I thought, my goodness, I never heard my father speak Bard. Why was that? And then I realised one of the reasons was because he was scared to teach it to us, because he wasn't allowed to. But also, when you actually look at English was becoming the dominant language, perhaps some of our old people thought, well, English is the language. How can you speak Bard when you're speaking in an English environment? So yeah, I'm sad about that, because I think, wow, I lost that opportunity to learn from a master in language. And I have thoughts about relearning Bard, and I really loved what Peter you had to say about setting up the language school. And I think we need to do that in our languages to have our languages survive and to pass them on to our children, because we know if you think and speak in language, you think differently. Like even some of the concepts that I learnt as a child around the concept of Leon, when it's not quite about the spirit, but it is about the spirit, because English is such a very confined language. And so some of the Aboriginal words kind of expand some of those meanings. So I think we're locked into using English very sort of outdated ways of thinking and looking at the world. So cultural stuff is great.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Can I ask you, we're only 3/4 way through day one, but what are you thinking so far? What's your takeaway from the conference?
I think there's been some great conversations taking place, but also some of the research, but more importantly, I think some of the evidence that's emerging around the importance of culture and the way in which culture, thinking about culture and particularly going back to country is very good for your health. I mean, we've always known that. But, nothing is validated until it's discovered. And that's the Western way of looking at things, whereas we didn't have to discover it. Aboriginal people just did it. So, but if we're living in the white man's world and research is the way to validate evidence, and we need that to get the money to do the programs, then I think what's great about the conference so far is that some of the evidence that's coming about, particularly in relation to culture, and how that is being measured and having an impact on health and well-being is a good thing.
And any particular projects stand out?
There's been a few, some PhD projects around culture and art and the importance of art centres, men's programs going back out, and we need a lot more men's programs, because I think in this world men don't get as many programs as women do. And I'm not sort of coming from saying that, what am I saying? I think we know that there are lots of programs for women, and there need to be, But I think that if we're to try and bring our men forward, we need to start also looking at men's programs and try to get our men engaged in health and that sort of thing. And some of the issues there is that a lot of our young men are not getting involved, and we need to find ways to include them. So some of those sessions have been, I've only been to 2 or 3, so I can't speak for the rest, but looking at the program, there's some fantastic fantastic presentations. The problem is they're all running at the same time and you can't split yourself down the middle, so you've got to kind of pick and choose and run from one session to the next.
It's a terrible conference dilemma, isn't it?
It is. But the ones I've been to so far have been great. And I missed the one with the Yulnu presentation from Galawinku talking about how using media and visual arts with the young people. I would have really liked to have attended that, but we got there and they'd already done their bit.
Thank you very much for letting me interrupt you on the way. Any final comments that you wanted to make?
No, just, I just think it's a wonderful conference, and for those that couldn't come, too bad.
Thank you so much.